Chapter 87 of the Ontario Reader's Third Book by the Ontario Ministry of Education. Read for LibriVox.org by Lucy Perry, in Bath, on March 15th, 2009. A Roman's Honour by Charlotte M. Yonge, from Book of Golden Deeds. The Romans had suffered a terrible defeat in BC 251, and Regulus, a famous soldier and senator, had been captured and dragged into Carthage, where the victors feasted and rejoiced through half the night, and testified their thanks to their god by offering in his fires the bravest of their captives. Regulus himself was not, however, one of these victims. He was kept a close prisoner for 2 years, pining and sickening in his loneliness, while, in the meantime, the war continued, and at last a victory so decisive was gained by the Romans that the people of Carthage were discouraged, and resolved to ask for terms of peace. They thought that no one would be so readily listened to at Rome as Regulus, and they therefore sent him back with their envoys, having first made him swear that he would come back to his prison if there should be neither peace nor an exchange of prisoners. They little knew how much more a true-hearted Roman cared for his city than for himself, for his word than for his life. Worn and dejected, the captive warrior came to the outside of the gates of his own city, and there paused, refusing to enter. "I am no longer a Roman citizen," he said. "I am but the barbarian slave, and the Senate may not give audience to strangers within the walls." His wife, Marcia, ran out to greet him with his 2 sons, but he did not look up, and received their caresses as one beneath their notice, as a mere slave, and he continued, in spite of all entreaty, to remain outside the city, and would not even go to the little farm that he had loved so well. The Roman Senate, as he would not come into them, came out to hold their meeting in the Campagna. The ambassadors spoke first, then Regulus, standing up, said, as one repeating a task, "Conscript fathers, being a slave to the Carthaginians, I come on the part of my masters to treat with you concerning peace and an exchange of prisoners." He then turned to go away with the ambassadors, as the stranger might not be present at the deliberations of the Senate. His old friends pressed him to stay and to give his opinion as a senator who had twice been consul, but he refused to degrade that dignity by claiming it, slave as he was. But, at the command of his Carthaginian masters, he remained, though not taking his seat. Then he spoke. He told the senators to persevere in the war. He said he had seen the distress of Carthage, and that a peace would be only to her advantage, not to that of Rome, and therefore he strongly advised that the war should continue. Then, as to the exchange of prisoners, the Carthaginian generals, who were in the hands of the Romans, were in full health and strength, whilst he himself was too much broken down to be fit for service again. And indeed he believed his enemies had given him a slow poison, and that he could not live long. Thus he insisted that no exchange of prisoners should be made. It was wonderful, even to Romans, to hear a man thus pleading against himself, and their chief priest came forward and declared that, as his oath had been wrested from him by force, he was not bound by it to return to his captivity. But Regulus was too noble to listen to this for a moment. "Have you resolved to dishonour me?" he said. "I am not ignorant that death and the extremest tortures are preparing for me, but what are these to the shame of an infamous action, or the wounds of a guilty mind? Slave as I am to Carthage, I have still the spirit of a Roman. I have sworn to return, it is my duty to go, let the gods take care of the rest." The Senate decided to follow the advice of Regulus, though they bitterly regretted his sacrifice. His wife wept and entreated in vain that they would detain him. They could merely repeat their permission to him to remain, but nothing could prevail with him to break his word, and he turned back to the chains and death he expected, as calmly as if he had been returning to his home. This was in the year BC 249. End of chapter 87. This recording is in the public domain.